welcome home Coach Malone. The new leader of UNC men's basketball was introduced to fans at a celebration in the Dean Dome. His message to the Tar Heel faithful as he takes control of the team.
Cool air sticks with us for now, with overnight lows dropping into the 30s. I'm tracking where frost is possible and a look ahead to our next big warm-up.
And deadline looming. President Trump says if Iran doesn't open the critical Strait of Hormuz by 8 o'clock, he plans to take major action against them. What a retired military general tells us about the decisions that go into military action like the president is threatening.
New tonight, President Trump agrees to a 2-week ceasefire as long as Iran reopens the Strait of Hormuz. We're asking a retired U.S. Army Lieutenant General about the president's threats and what's happening behind closed doors.
More to talk about as well. Cary and Wake County schools, they get to work on their budgets. And you might have heard UNC does have a new head coach. Here at 7 o'clock, we want you to weigh in on all of these stories and more. Send us an email, 7 p.m. at WRAL.com. It is your questions, comments, and feedback that drive this newscast. First up tonight, Michael Malone, officially introduced as the new head coach of UNC men's basketball. He signed a 6-year, $50 million deal.
A whole lot of optimism in the room this afternoon. Former Tar Heel coach Roy Williams was in the building. The UNC brass talked about Malone hanging a new banner in the Dean Smith Center. Malone feeling pretty good about the Tar Heels, too.
This was the only college job I'd ever consider. You know, if any other job, I wouldn't even answer the phone. I told them what I expect from them, our style of play, and what our culture is going to be. And, I want guys to commit to that, buy into that. And if we do that, then you can start talking about banners.
WRAL Sports' Chris Lee joining us now live from Chapel Hill. Chris, you were there at the news conference that wrapped up not too long ago.
And Chris, a big talker here is about Malone's experience. He has it in the NBA, never has been a head coach at a college level. What did he say about that? And what did he say about why he accepted this job at UNC?
Yeah, guys, I mean, as you heard right there, he said that he wouldn't have picked up the phone for any other school. I mean, not even Kansas, not even Duke, not even Kentucky. It was Carolina alone. And a big part of that is because of how he grew up. His dad, who was a coach, said that he was a big-time Carolina fan, big-time Dean Smith fan. That's why he picked up the phone, because of that, which he grew up with and seeing. Also had a chance to ask him, what's the difference for you between college and the NBA, seeing that in college you don't have a 7-game series, you have one and done formats and tournaments, and then also you have big rivalry games that you really don't have in NBA basketball. And he said he's embracing that. He loves rivalries. He wants to win, and it feels like that's one of the reasons why he also wants to be here, to be a part of the family, to be a part of the lineage, to be a part of those rivalries. And here's something else that he said about why he wanted to come here as a Carolina basketball coach.
Every time I thought about it, I talked to my wife Jocelyn, I'd say, you know what? This is North Carolina. This is Roy Williams. This is Dean Smith. This is Coach Guthridge. And I wanted to be a part of something so much bigger than me.
Now, Chris, let's talk about this salary. I got an email from a viewer named Christine earlier. She said she's excited, a new coach with some promise, but said $50 million over 6 years. She called it ridiculous and obscene. Now, look, there's no doubt that there's big money in contracts like this. But can you explain a little bit more about the massive going rate for college coaches in college sports today?
Well, before we get there, Dan, if I get a call to be a head coach, would you come be one of my assistants? Because there's plenty of money to go around. I'm pretty sure we would love all that with the new salary, right? There is a lot of money going around. We just had the NCAA tournament wrap up just yesterday. College basketball makes billions of dollars in television deals, so there's going to be a big pool of money. But for Michael Malone getting this amount of money, this is pretty much about the going rate for the big-time coaches in college basketball. Let's compare this to Justin Gainey, who's at NC State, who was just announced last week. He's making about $2.5 million per year. That's about the amount that Will Wade made before he left NC State. But when you have a coach like Michael Malone come in, you're paying for the winning. You're paying for what he could potentially bring you. He's an NBA champion, so he's going to command a little bit more money. And then also, if you see Tommy Lloyd, who Carolina wanted at one point as well, got $7.5 million from Arizona, guys.
All right. Thank you to Chris. Hopefully this coach can bring in some revenue to match
Yes, exactly.
the salary. Chris, thank you.
This is Brian Schrader in the WRAL Live Center. I want to get you up to date with that big announcement just about 30 minutes ago. President Trump posting on Truth Social that he has agreed to suspend the bombing of Iran for 2 weeks if the Strait of Hormuz is reopened. This is that post, and he said, subject to Iran agreeing to that reopening, I agree to suspend the bombing and attack of Iran for a period of 2 weeks. This will be a double-sided ceasefire. And we have just learned, CNN reporting, that Israel also has agreed to be a part of that ceasefire. President Trump posting on Truth Social that the proposal that he got from Iran is what he believes is a workable basis on which to negotiate. Important to point out at this point, we have not heard Iran's response to all of this yet. It was a deadline just 1 hour from now that President Trump threatened to bomb Iran if the strait had not reopened. So a developing story that we're following on WRAL.com right now.
Certainly.
Okay, Brian, thank you. Hey, let's shift to the forecast now. Kat, part of our areas could see frost overnight. Temperature is going to be in the 30s.
It's going to be a cold night out there. You'll want to make sure that you've got your jacket on hand tonight and when you leave tomorrow morning. Lows range from 33 to about 40 degrees tonight, and we still have the potential for patchy frost, but it's not looking as widespread. And this is why. We'll see winds around 5 to 10 miles per hour, gusting higher, and what that does, it kind of mixes up the air, and that prevents frost from settling on a widespread basis. Still more sheltered locations, sheltered from the wind, that is, may still see some frost develop tomorrow morning. So if you want to be cautious, you've got plants you really want to protect, it's not a bad idea to cover them up tonight. 33 in Roxborough, 35 in Lewisburg, 38 in Raleigh, and 39 in Fayetteville. It'll be a frigid start tomorrow morning. Some of our colder spots like Oxford could dip down to 33 as well. Dan and Ashley.
Thanks, Kat. Hey, let's get to another story happening right now at 7 o'clock. Wake County Schools just wrapped up a meeting about the superintendent's proposed budget for next year. Brian, you're keeping an eye on that in the Live Center. What can you tell us?
Yeah, Robert Taylor talking about some of the cuts that he's proposing to the budget, and it's not as many as he announced last month. Recall, there was a lot of protest after he said that he wanted to cut $18 million from the budget, which would include about 130 positions. Tonight, he announced $5.2 million in proposed cuts, about $2.5 million from transportation, a little more than $2 million from employment among elementary literacy coaches in the county, about $500,000 from instructional services, and about $50,000 converting the student parent handbook from a printed copy to a digital copy. But he says that there are more cuts likely coming, and I want to show you the next steps in this process. There are going to be community input sessions the next couple of weeks, and then April 21st, that's when the school board will have work sessions, and there will be a public hearing with the superintendent's final proposed budget.
Got it, Brian, thank you. The town of Cary, they're working on a new spending plan, and after all the issues with their previous town manager, the council is pledging transparency in this process. WRAL's Flynn Snyder found out how that's going to work and if it's rebuilding any of the trust with residents.
Of all the things Cary residents want in the town's budget, the most prominent might be something money can't buy.
The more transparent it is, certainly the less people can complain about it.
Linda and Randy Wade took part in Cary's budget open house.
I think a lot of people don't know what goes into putting a budget together.
The town is creating a spending plan for next fiscal year, and leaders want public input.
We have 10 different budget priorities, and we're hoping our citizens will rank them.
They're building a budget and rebuilding trust. Right now, investigations are underway into former town manager Sean Stiegel, who resigned late last year. The state auditor is looking into Stiegel's spending of town money. The SBI is also reviewing documents related to a 2016 investigation where Stiegel's car was spotted at a suspected drug motel. So I emailed every agency involved asking for an update on the investigation and if there's any timeline for it to be completed. The SBI was the only one to get back to me before this story aired. A spokesperson saying that the investigation is active and ongoing, but that they don't expect anything moving in the very near future.
We really want to go out of our way and make the information that our citizens would love to have available to them in multiple formats.
While residents push for public safety and transit, they're also pushing for clarity.
It's good to know what all goes into it and how it progresses throughout the year. And I think that may have been some of the issues.
A routine process now under a new microscope. Flynn Snyder, WRAL News, Cary.
Still ahead, President Trump's deadline for Iran to open the Strait of Hormuz pushed back 2 weeks.
The president did not mince words about this. We brought the president's demands and rhetoric to a retired U.S. Army lieutenant general, asking him what he thinks and what might happen next.
Welcome back to the WRAL Live Center. Moments ago, we learned that Iran's Supreme National Security Council has approved that ceasefire, that 2-week ceasefire plan that President Trump posted just about 40 minutes ago. A 2-week ceasefire, a 10-point peace proposal. We're working to find out the details about that, but official confirmation now that Iran has agreed to that ceasefire.
Significant updates here, things developing hour by hour on this important story. And we are keeping an eye on it because the president was very serious in his threats as early as this morning, using very strong language. Up until the last half hour, he had an 8 p.m. deadline. To get some better insight into what happens next, what we can keep our eye on, I spoke to retired U.S. Army Lieutenant General Robert Ashley. President Trump really ramping up his threats against Iran. But we know that rhetoric is far from the full picture, right? What's said publicly and what's happening privately are often two different things. As the clock approaches his 8 p.m. deadline, who is in the room with him? And what kind of intelligence or advice is he getting?
Yeah, I think the people that are in the room with him at this point will be the Secretary of War, it'll be the Chairman of the Joint Chiefs, Senator Rubio in his capacity as the National Security Advisor. I think the Director of the Central Intelligence Agency will be there, and possibly the Director of National Intelligence.
And what kind of advice or intelligence is he getting that can guide the conversation?
So if you take kind of that hyperbolic statement of we're going to eliminate this civilization, so the chairman's responsibility is to talk to the president about, okay, here are the targets, here are the options, and here's the potential outcomes. Now, you mentioned my time with the Defense Intelligence Agency. What DIA does is they have responsibility to understand all the infrastructure inside Iran. And so what they can map out is if you want to darken this part of the country, these are the targets you have to hit. And then the question is, how many of those can they feasibly hit over one period of darkness, the strike tonight, and what's the effect that they want to achieve? So the chairman is going to give the president a series of options of potential impacts and targets, and then he can choose from those options.
Iran has threatened retaliation. Today, the Iranian envoy said Tehran will, quote, take immediate and proportionate action if Trump follows through on attack threats. Immediately thought of all of the men and women from the 82nd Airborne who were recently deployed to the Middle East. How are you thinking about what their role in all of this might be?
So, the 82nd is there in place to give the president options. To your first statement with regards to what the Iranians may do, they've been very clear that if we go after electric infrastructure, power infrastructure, that they're going to respond symmetrically. So they're going to take a symmetric approach against those kinds of facilities and installations across the Gulf Cooperation Council nations. So they're going to strike similar targets. And there's still the options of asymmetric threats. We've already seen them go after some cyber targets. There's still a global threat of terrorist activity and the fact that they could reach out to target officials in the United States. For the 82nd, they are only prepared to execute whatever the president has, whether that is to go to Karg Island, whether that is to go to some of the smaller islands around the Straits of Hormuz, or just to be a defensive capability to provide additional reinforcement to some of the bases that are in the Gulf region.
Critics say that what Trump is threatening could be a war crime. Canada's prime minister said, quote, Canada expects all parties in this conflict, in any conflict, to respect international laws. That means not targeting civilians or civilian infrastructure. But, Trump said in January in a New York Times interview, I don't need international law. I'm curious what you make of the rhetoric about international law. How much is that a factor in the private conversations among top members of the military?
Yeah, so not a lawyer by trade, but what I can tell you unequivocally is that the chairman of the Joint Chiefs, is very familiar with the law of armed conflict, the distinction between military and civilian targets, and the military necessity to strike particular targets. And so in those conversations that we talked about at the beginning, behind closed doors, the chairman will lay out what are legal and illegal targets for the president, but ultimately it will be the president to decide what targets he wants to strike.
Bob Ashley, I appreciate your time. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Ashley.
So a brief sigh of relief as Iran agrees to this 2-week ceasefire, delicate ceasefire agreement. Let us know what else you want to talk about when it comes to the war with Iran. Send an email to 7 p.m. at WRAL.com. Which parts of this story do you want to see covered on the news? Tell us what's on your mind, and we'll talk about it here at 7 o'clock.
Thank you, Ashley. As we turn to meteorologist Kat Campbell now. Not a rain cloud in sight, which is typically something that gets people excited, but in this case, we really do need some rain.
We need the rain, and when we've needed the rain now for a while, and I'm looking at the forecast and we have almost no rain over the next 2 weeks, this really starts to become a problem. Most models are showing very little rainfall. The European AI model, and the American AI model all show less than half an inch of rain. There is one outlier. We can hope for the best, but it is not the best performing model out of these, and it is an outlier right now. The American model does have some rain finally toward the end of next week, but it's really the only thing that does at this point, at least notable rain. The drought status extreme toward Rocky Mount. It remains severe in the Triangle and for most of our viewing area. And here's the setup and why we really don't have much rain. The storm zone is going to be set up from the plains, Texas, all the way up into the Midwest. And this is where we have the jet stream arch kind of right through here. And that's where we're going to see all the rain. And unfortunately, a severe weather pattern likely set up for an area that is so prone to severe weather, Tornado Alley. It is April. April and May are the peak of severe weather season in the country. So this is going to be a concern starting over the weekend, potentially lasting into next week. Here at home, most tornadoes occur in the spring, about 43%. And that's the #1 severe weather season for us here at home as well. The good news is, since we don't have any rain, we don't have any severe weather really in the forecast anytime soon, which is always good to hear in April, to be honest. But we do need some rain, so there's kind of an up and a down to it. The WRAL Azalea Gardens are looking beautiful right now. Picnic blanket out there from earlier today. We've had a lot of photo shoots going on in the gardens today. Tomorrow morning, you're going to need your jacket, and your kids will as well at the bus stop. There could be a little bit of patchy frost in more sheltered locations. 30s to start. Highs only climb near 60 tomorrow afternoon. A bit breezy at times as well. Over the next 7 days, though, we've got another warm up in sight. We fall back down to 38 for the low tomorrow night into Thursday morning, and then temperatures start to bounce back. Upper 60s Thursday, 77 and full sunshine Friday. It's going to be a gorgeous day. The weekend is warm and dry, 83 both Saturday and Sunday, and then warmer weather returns next week, mid-80s with lows climbing back into the low 60s. That's a sign that the humidity is going to inch up just a little bit too.
Thank you, Kat.
Have you seen the bald eagles that live at Shelley Lake in Raleigh? It's kind of their spot there. They've been there for years. We're going to get a closer look and hear from the bird watchers who come by all the time. One last thing after the break.
Or one last thing for you. Did you know there's a bald eagle nest at Shelley Lake Park in Raleigh? It actually is possible that you definitely already knew that. The eagles have lived there for years.
Bird watchers, they go by there all the time. The park is especially busy these days for lots of reasons, but one of them being the eagles have a baby. WRL's Grace Holland went to see if she could spot them.
Today is the day that I become a bird watcher. I'm going to go meet the bald eagle family that lives at Shelley Lake. Let's go learn a little bit more about them, shall we? The nest is pretty high up. It's in this tree right here. Did you ever see the eagle the last time you were here?
I did, but there were a bunch of bird watchers standing there, so we were kind of trying to figure it out. It took us about 10 minutes to figure out where it was.
It was absolutely gorgeous.
I was walking over, and then there were people, just like a bunch of people staring at it. I was like, what's going on? And then they told me that the eagle was over there, so I saw it. And then someone had a picture of it, so that's pretty cool.
You can sort of see its beak right there. Pretty neat, yeah. Took my two of my kids there to see it. So We always like to see wildlife.
And I mean, they still talk about it. Like a year ago, like we saw the eagle.
We're about to go up and meet Sean. He is the Land Stewardship Program Manager for the city of Raleigh. Nice to meet you.
He showed us the shortest way to the nest. It's off North Hills Drive.
How long have they been at Shelley Lake?
So they showed up the first time at the end of 2017, and that makes this their 9th year consecutively.
I think I saw something. They have names, right?
Yeah. So they've been dubbed Raleigh, which is the male, and Shelley.
Okay, well, fitting names.
Yeah.
They have an eaglet right now? Multiple?
They do. Just one this year. Previous years, they usually average 2. And actually, the first 3 years they nested, it was pretty eventful. They had chicks fall from the nest.
Can the eaglet leave the nest yet or no?
Not yet. So it's getting just big enough to kind of stretch its wings and start limb hopping. And then a couple more weeks, I'd say they're probably going to be ready to go. So right here,
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, I'd wager that this is probably one of the most watched pairs of eagles on the East Coast.
Grace Holland, WRAL News in Raleigh.
Well, if it wasn't busy enough, it's got me inspired to go check it out.
So cool. Maybe you'll see an eaglet.
Well, I can hope. Thanks for being with us tonight here at 7 o'clock. Keep sending those emails in, 7 p.m. at WRAL.com. We didn't have a lot of time on the back end of the show tonight. Usually we'll get to a couple of feedback questions and comments that we get during the newscast. We'll be sure to start working those in this week. So keep watching. Stay tuned.
Good night.